They've got absolutely nothing to worry about. Liverpool are in a fantastic position. They've been saving their money for a rainy day. They don't even have to sell Diaz. He's going for footballing reasons rather than PSR reasons. They've had a spectacular year financially. Manchester United's not in as bad a position as I think perhaps the club has made itself out to be.
Hello, I'm Angelina Kelly and welcome to The Window, talkSPORT's daily video transfer update and your go-to guide for all of the biggest football moves. Coming up, we will be getting the latest on the financial workings of the likes of Liverpool and Arsenal, plus so much more. And joining me today is football finance expert Kieran Maguire. So, Kieran, let's talk about Liverpool. They've made some big signings. They've already spent over £250 million this summer on Florian Wirtz, Jeremy Frimpong from Bayer Leverkusen, Milos Kerkez from Bournemouth, and Hugo Ekitike from Eintracht Frankfurt. But it seems like they still want Alexander Isak. So in order to stay PSR compliant, will they need to sell more players than Luis Diaz, who's gone to Bayern Munich for €75 million? Because I was thinking Newcastle will probably want, £150 million for their star striker? And you'd imagine, wages-wise, he'd want about £300,000 per week. So yeah, will they have to sell more?
No, Liverpool are in a fantastic position. They've had a spectacular year financially. We've got the expanded Anfield. They've got a new kit manufacturing deal starting on the 1st of August with Adidas, and that's going to be worth considerably more than the old deal. They've also picked up bonuses from sponsors for winning the Premier League last year. And of course, they're participating in the Champions League this year. So you put all of those factors together. And you also take into account that in the last 2 or 3 windows, Liverpool have been relatively silent. They've been saving their money for a rainy day. They don't even have to sell Diaz. He's going for footballing reasons rather than PSR reasons. And that means they can extract maximum value from the sale.
Now, Arsenal have spent a fair amount of money this summer too. They're still being linked to Eberechi Eze and Real Madrid's Rodrigo. Looking at Eze, would he probably be cheaper at around, say, £60 million and maybe have lower wage demands than Rodrigo? And how much PSR headway do Arsenal have to actually make that work?
Again, Arsenal were in an excellent position. They were in the Champions League last season. They finished top 4 in the Premier League. And their stadium's relatively modern. And therefore, it's got a significant factor in terms of attracting the hospitality and corporate customers who pay the premium prices. And it's those revenue streams that are driving the success. They're in the £100 million a year club as far as ticket sales are concerned. So again, they've got absolutely nothing to worry about.
So do we live in a world where Arsenal could actually raise enough funds to compete with Liverpool for Alexander Isak, even if they sold, say, Trossard, Reece Nelson, Zinchenko, etc., maybe got Gabriel Jesus off the wage bill on loan?
Yes, I mean, it will be a footballing decision. If Isak does decide he definitely wants to go, then he will have a number of suitors. Clearly, Liverpool appear to be in prime position at present, but if he wanted to live in London, then Arsenal would be a very attractive proposition, and I don't think they'd have any problems whatsoever as far as the PSR compliance is concerned, because, again, in recent years, they've been using the exit door as much as signing players, and you have to remember, when you sign a player, the cost is spread over the life of the contract. So even £150 million spread over 5 years is only going to be £30 million a year.
Now, let's go to my team, Manchester United. They are on the hunt for a striker, but they're also hoping to offload Alejandro Garnacho, Anthony and Jadon Sancho in order to, say, sign someone like Ollie Watkins for £50 million. So how much would they have to get from the sales of those 3 to make that happen?
I'm sounding like a broken record, but Manchester United's not in as bad a position as I think perhaps the club has made itself out to be. I think the new owners are conscious that historically there's been a Manchester United tax, especially in the years when they were so successful. I don't think that necessarily exists anymore. Remember, Marcus Rashford's wages are off the payroll this year. That's going to save them 16 or 17 million pounds cash, and they've only got to move on 1 or 2 other players. They are still in a position where, although they've signed 2 strikers already, they have the capacity to buy more.
So if United want to add another midfielder or goalkeeper, say, on top of that, that's realistic.
Yes, I think especially if you're looking at that sort of 50 to 60 million pound elite player without necessarily being one of the very few that everybody's after. Yes, Manchester United could still go ahead and do that with ease.
Elsewhere, speaking of Ollie Watkins, Aston Villa haven't done much business at all in this transfer window. Is that because of PSR, and would selling Watkins open up the doors for them in that respect?
Well, I think of all of the clubs at the start of the window, Aston Villa are the ones who we were most concerned about from a PSR perspective. However, they did appear to sell the women's team to themselves just before the financial year end, and that managed to allow them to get over the line as far as compliance with 2024-25 was concerned. So they are in a much better position, and people also forget the sales that they have made over the course of the last 12 months. So I think that they can spend modestly, but clearly a sale of a player like Ollie Watkins, whose book value will be relatively low because he's been at the club a few years. So therefore, there's a lot of profit in terms of a disposal of a player of his caliber, would certainly free up further capacity as far as PSR compliance is concerned.
And finally, Everton's owners have just sold their women's team to a sister company. You know, this is what Chelsea did back in the spring. You mentioned Aston Villa. Can you just explain what they've done, why they've done it, and how this will help them?
Everton's women's team was owned by the holding company, effectively the men's team, and then they separated it out. And it has been sold to another part of the Friedkin Empire, a company called Roundhouse. And one assumes that it's been sold for a competitive price. The women's team also now owns the stadium. So effectively, there's not only the football team, but there's Goodison itself, which has been sold. Those profits are allowed for Premier League PSR, that they're not allowed under UEFA rules, but it's not an issue for Everton this season. So therefore it does free up some extra space. The other reason why Everton have done it, according to my understanding, speaking to people on Merseyside, is that there is a lot of interest from American investors in particular who see the women's game, the WSL in particular, as being potentially a huge growth area. And therefore, it looks as if the owners are going to sell perhaps 10 or 20% of the women's team to a third party, but that allows them to have 100% ownership or close to 100% ownership of the men's team, and they can still have 70 to 80% ownership of the women's team, and it will bring in fresh cash from a minority sale of the women's team.
Well, there you have it. Kieran, thank you so much for joining me. Remember, the window will be back next week to keep you up to date with the latest rumours, done deals and everything in between. The window is in association with our own bookie, talkSPORT Bet. Download the app or head to talksportbet.com if you want to get involved. 18 plus, T's and C's apply. BeGambleAware.org.